Hello, welcome back to the deep dive. We hear this a lot from a bunch of you out there, a real yearning to speak English, confidently. But then there's that feeling of being stuck. You know what I mean? It's that fear, that hesitation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real thing. It's a challenge for language learners,
Yeah.
for sure. You want to communicate, but the fear, it feels like a wall sometimes.
It does.
Yeah.
But here's the good news. It doesn't have to be a permanent roadblock. Our whole mission today is not to just pump you up with a pep talk. We're going to really dig into some very practical approaches, some different ways of looking at this that can honestly help you to find your voice in English.
That's the key right there, those actionable strategies. It's not enough to just say, don't be afraid. We need those real tools, those techniques.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's start by kind of turning the tables on how we usually think about this whole confidence and fluency thing. People often assume that you need to become fluent first, and then you'll magically feel confident speaking.
Right.
But we're going to explore how it can actually work in reverse. Confidence often comes from taking those initial steps in speaking, even if they're not perfect.
I see.
The more you try, the more your fluency naturally develops.
Okay.
That's really the foundation we'll be working with today.
I like that.
So instead of just running through a laundry list of fears or saying, hey, mistakes are okay, which, let's face it, you've probably heard a gazillion times,
Right.
we're going to equip you with a framework and some concrete tools that you can put to use today.
Love that.
To kick things off, let's use the analogy of a gymnast.
Okay. A gymnast. Interesting.
So picture this, you've got an Olympic level gymnast learning a brand new routine.
Okay.
They're not going to land every single flip and twist perfectly on the first attempt.
Of course not.
They're going to stumble, they're going to fall. It's through that process of repetition and refining those moves that they eventually reach that point of mastery.
Right.
And learning a language, especially the speaking part, is a lot like that.
Interesting.
You progress by making those, messy, brave, honest attempts and taking something away from each one.
Yeah.
The focus shouldn't be on being flawless right out of the gate. It's more about that willingness to try and to keep learning along the way.
That's a great point. It's about the process, not just the end result.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, let's dive into some of those getting back up strategies. We're going to explore 4 specific techniques that are really designed to build both your speaking confidence and your skill set.
Let's do it.
The first one we'll look at is called shadowing. Copy to learn.
Okay, shattering. I like the sound of that.
It's kind of like a workout for your English speaking muscles.
Okay.
The way it works is you find a short audio clip or a video clip where somebody is speaking clearly. It could be a quick scene from a movie, a little snippet from a podcast, or even just a clear explanation from a YouTube video.
Gotcha.
You listen to one sentence, you hit pause, and then you try to repeat it exactly as you heard it, paying really close attention to the tone, the pace, the rhythm of their speech.
Interesting. So you're not just saying the words, you're trying to mirror their delivery.
That's it. That's the key element here. It's not just about saying the words, but trying to really embody how they're saying them. You're engaging your ear to hear those nuances of spoken English, and then your mouth to actually physically make those sounds.
I see. So it's about more than just comprehension. It's about that physical act of replication.
Exactly. And again, this isn't about memorizing the content. It's about training your ear and your mouth to work together in this new way.
Yeah.
It's about helping your speech sound smoother, more natural over time. Kind of like when you learn a new dance. You carefully watch how someone else moves until those steps become second nature to you.
That's a great analogy. It makes it more tangible.
Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, shadowing is really valuable for developing what we call prosody. That's the rhythm, the stress patterns, the intonation we use when we speak.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And these elements are so important for sounding natural and being understood, sometimes even more so than perfect grammar.
So you're saying that even with some grammatical errors, if you've got the rhythm and the flow down, people are more likely to get what you're saying.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It's a big part of how we make sense of language.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, moving on to our second super useful tool. We've got voice journaling, speak your mind.
Voice journaling.
Okay, this is a cool alternative to the classic method of writing in English.
Interesting. Instead of writing, you're speaking your thoughts.
Exactly. And you know what's interesting? A lot of learners actually feel less inhibited when they're speaking privately compared to writing.
I can see that. Maybe it's because you're not so focused on getting the grammar perfect. You're just letting your thoughts out.
You got it. So instead of writing down your thoughts, you speak them aloud. Set a timer for just a few minutes every day, maybe 3 to 5 minutes to start. and just talk about whatever comes to mind.
So just like a stream of consciousness in English.
Yeah. How was your day? What are you feeling? What did you learn? The goal isn't about flawless grammar. It's about letting those thoughts flow in English.
So it's more about building that comfort and familiarity with expressing yourself in English.
Exactly. And you can even record yourself doing this to track your progress over time. Some learners begin with just 30 seconds of voice journaling and gradually work their way up to like 15 minutes of comfortable, spontaneous speaking.
Wow, that's impressive.
It's amazing how quickly you can build that stamina. And it really helps you to begin thinking in English and get more comfortable with those everyday topics.
And even listening back to those recordings, even if it feels a little strange at first, can be really enlightening. You might start noticing patterns in your speech, maybe areas where you hesitate, or even improvements that you didn't realize you were making.
It's true. You become more aware of how you sound and where you can focus your efforts.
I like that.
Our third technique is called role-playing. Simulate real conversations.
Okay, role-playing. I've heard of this.
This one directly tackles that anxiety that many people feel about having to actually speak English in real-life situations.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's a way to practice and get ready for those interactions without all the pressure of a real-time conversation.
Makes sense. So it's like a dress rehearsal for real-life speaking.
Exactly. So if the thought of an English conversation makes you nervous, try practicing those scenarios in advance. You can role-play things like ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, introducing yourself to someone.
Got it. So you're creating these little simulations.
You can find scripts online that give you a basic framework, or you can even write your own dialogues based on situations you might encounter. You can play both parts yourself, or if you have a language partner, you can practice together.
That's a great idea. It's like having a personalized script for your life.
Exactly. And the cool thing about role-playing is it helps your brain prepare.
How so?
By mentally going through those motions, you're essentially creating this mental blueprint.
Oh, interesting.
When you encounter a similar situation in real life, your brain goes, hey, I've seen this before.
So you're not caught completely off guard.
And you're less likely to freeze up or feel totally overwhelmed.
Because you've already practiced how you might respond.
It makes those real situations feel more familiar, less scary, because your brain has already worked through a similar pattern, even if it was just practice.
That's a really powerful point. And it can also help you identify specific vocabulary or phrases that might be useful in certain situations.
That's true. You can tailor your practice to the scenarios you're most likely to face.
Okay. I'm liking this role-playing idea more and more.
And finally, our fourth super helpful tool is called micro-challenges. Build momentum in tiny steps.
Micro challenges.
Okay, break it down for me.
This is all about taking that big goal of speaking English confidently and breaking it down into smaller, more manageable steps, actions that you can do every day.
Bite-sized pieces.
Exactly. And this approach taps into the power of what we call small wins.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Each time you successfully complete a micro challenge, no matter how small it seems, you get this little boost of accomplishment. It reinforces your ability to speak, even if it was just for a moment. It's like those small wins create this positive feedback loop.
You got it. So instead of setting these huge, maybe even intimidating goals like become fluent by the end of the year, you give yourself these small, doable speaking challenges each day.
Okay, give me some examples.
It could be as simple as saying good morning to someone in English,
Easy enough.
ordering your lunch in English instead of your native language, or introducing yourself to one new person in English.
I see. So things that you can realistically fit into your daily routine.
And that's the key. The point is that these challenges are designed to be achievable, repeatable. They're not meant to be super difficult or to trigger anxiety.
Right.
They're meant to be small victories that gradually build up your confidence over time.
So it's about creating a positive cycle of action and positive reinforcement.
Exactly. Okay, so now that we've covered these practical tools, let's tackle some of the common concerns that many learners have about speaking English. These are questions we hear all the time.
Yeah, these are the things that can really hold people back.
The first one is, do you absolutely need a native speaker to practice with to improve?
That's a big question.
And the answer is a resounding no. While practicing with native speakers can definitely have its benefits, it is absolutely not a requirement, especially when you're starting out and just trying to build your confidence and comfort level.
So you're saying it's not a prerequisite?
Not at all. You can practice effectively with other language learners through apps that have speaking exercises, or even, as we mentioned before, with voice journaling, just by narrating your day to yourself in English.
Interesting. So it's about taking advantage of any opportunity to speak.
Exactly. Saying things like, okay, I'm going to make some tea now, or I need to reply to this email.
Simple things like that.
The key is understanding that every chance you take to produce spoken English is valuable practice.
It all adds up.
It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be this formal conversation with a native speaker to help you make progress and feel more at ease speaking.
Makes sense.
Every little bit counts. Another super common worry is, what if I completely blank on the words I want to say in the middle of a sentence?
Oh, yeah, that's happened to me. It's so frustrating.
It can be, but it's also a completely normal part of learning a language.
Really?
It's not a sign that you're failing or that you're not good at it. Even people who are fluent in multiple languages sometimes struggle to come up with the exact word they're looking for.
Oh, that's comforting to know.
The important thing in those moments is to develop some strategies for working around it.
Okay, like what?
Try rephrasing what you want to say, using words you do know. Use gestures to get your meaning across, or think of a different way to express the same idea.
So it's about becoming a more resourceful communicator,
Exactly. At the end of the day, communication is about conveying a message.
not about being a walking dictionary.
It's not about knowing every single word in the English language. The person you're speaking with will probably understand what you're trying to say, even if your vocabulary isn't perfect.
And sometimes those imperfect moments can even lead to some fun misunderstandings or even new ways of expressing things.
That's true. It can add a bit of humor to the situation.
Yeah.
And the last common concern we wanted to address is, what if someone laughs at me when I try to speak?
Ooh, yeah. That's a tough one. That's a real fear for a lot of people.
It is, and it's important to talk about it directly and honestly.
Yeah.
The truth is that most people genuinely admire the effort and courage it takes to learn and speak another language.
It really does take a lot of guts to put yourself out there.
And generally, listeners will feel respect for you making that effort, not judgment.
Hmm.
Think about it. You're putting yourself in a potentially vulnerable position to connect and communicate, and that takes bravery.
It's a sign of strength, not weakness.
Absolutely. And in those rare and unfortunate instances where someone does laugh, it truly says way more about their attitude and their own insecurities than it does about your ability or your progress.
They're projecting their own stuff.
It's not a reflection of your worth as a communicator at all.
Yeah, it's more about them than you.
All right, so now that we've talked about these practical tools and addressed some of those common worries, what do you think is the most important step our listeners can take today?
I think the most crucial step is just to start. Don't wait for some magical moment when you feel perfectly ready, because that feeling might never actually come.
That's so true. We can get caught up in waiting for the perfect time.
Fluency begins with the act of speaking, not with the absence of mistakes.
You said it. So choose one of the techniques we've discussed: shadowing voice journaling, role-playing, setting a tiny micro-challenge, and just give it a try today.
Dip your toes in the water.
And remember, your language learning journey won't always be this smooth upward trajectory.
Of course not. There will be days when you feel like you're making great progress and other days where you might feel a little stuck. That's completely normal.
Totally normal. The key is to focus on making consistent progress, no matter how small, rather than aiming for this instant, unattainable perfection.
Progress over perfection.
Exactly. So here's a specific challenge for you to take on today.
Okay, I'm ready.
Your task is super simple. Find just one opportunity to say something in English to another person. Even if it's just, hello, how are you?
I like it.
Or if you're not quite ready for that, just say a single English sentence out loud to yourself. That's all it takes to begin.
That first step is often the hardest, but it's also the most important.
It breaks that initial inertia and gets the ball rolling.
And then try to do it again tomorrow. Keep that momentum going.
You don't need perfect grammar, a flawless accent, or a huge vocabulary to start.
Nope.
What you need is the willingness to try, and the fact that you're listening to this tells us that you already have that.
You're already on the right path just by being here.
We really hope that this deep dive has given you some actionable strategies and a fresh perspective on overcoming that fear of speaking English. Remember, every small step you take, every single word you speak contributes to your overall progress.
And as you start incorporating these techniques into your routine, remember that consistency is key. Even short, regular practice sessions will be much more effective than sporadic, longer ones.
Little and often makes a big difference. If this deep dive has resonated with you, please share it with someone you know who might be on a similar language learning journey.
Yeah, sharing resources and experiences can create a really supportive environment.
It helps to know you're not alone in this. And remember this, no matter where you are on your learning path, your voice has value.
Don't be afraid to use it. Let it be heard.
We encourage you to think back to that initial fear you had about speaking English and consider how even just one of these techniques could be the starting point to chip away at it bit by bit.
What small action will you take today?
That's the question to ask yourself. This is just the beginning, and there's so much more to explore about how we learn and how we communicate. We'll be back to dive into more fascinating topics with you in future deep dives.
Until then, happy speaking.
See you next time.
Bye.